The United States just made a move so massive, so unprecedented, that it could completely reshape the Ukraine war overnight. We're not talking about another aid package. We're not talking about political statements. We're talking about thousands of brand new missiles, weapons that Russia has never faced before, flooding into Ukraine right now in February 2026. Putin thought he had the advantage. He thought his missile superiority would break Ukraine's will. He was wrong. What's coming will hit Russia harder than any sanction, harder than any diplomatic pressure. And the Kremlin knows it. This is the single biggest military move of the entire war, and it's happening right now. Just days ago, the U.S. Department of Defense completed live-fire testing of a weapons system that's about to flood Ukrainian battlefields. We're talking about thousands, yes, thousands, of advanced missiles heading to Ukraine in the coming weeks. Here's what makes this absolutely unprecedented. This isn't a gradual rollout. This isn't testing the waters. The Pentagon has green-lit mass production and immediate deployment. Sources close to the Department of Defense confirmed in early February 2026 that production lines are running at maximum capacity. But why now? Why this massive commitment? Look at what's happening on the ground right now. In February 2026, Russia still maintains a significant missile advantage. Every single day, Russian forces launch dozens of missiles and drones at Ukrainian cities, infrastructure, and military positions. Ukraine has been fighting with one hand tied behind its back, constantly on the defensive. That changes now. The timing is deliberate. As Russia's economy crumbles, and we'll get to that catastrophe in a moment, the U.S. is ensuring that Ukraine can press its advantage. These new missiles will allow Ukrainian forces to strike deeper, harder, and more accurately than ever before. Pentagon officials, speaking on condition of anonymity just this week, revealed that these missiles possess capabilities that will fundamentally alter the battlefield dynamics. Translation: Russia's military infrastructure, supply lines, and command centers are about to face a level of threat they've never experienced. So what exactly are we talking about here? While the Pentagon hasn't released every specification, and they won't for operational security reasons, what we know is staggering. These are precision-guided missiles with extended range capabilities. Current reports from February 2026 indicate these missiles feature advanced guidance systems that make them nearly impossible to intercept. Unlike older systems, these use multi-mode targeting that adapts in real time. Russian air defense systems that might stop conventional missiles, these new weapons can outmaneuver them. Extended range that puts critical Russian military assets at risk. Ammunition depots, command centers, logistics hubs, places that Putin thought were untouchable? Not anymore. The warhead technology reportedly uses Penetrator designs specifically engineered to defeat hardened targets. We're talking about bunkers, reinforced facilities, underground storage, all vulnerable. And here's the kicker. These missiles are designed for rapid deployment. Ukrainian forces won't need months of training. The systems are compatible with existing Ukrainian launchers, with some modifications. That means these weapons can be on the battlefield and operational within weeks of delivery. Defense analysts who spoke to reporters just days ago in February 2026 estimate that Ukraine could receive the first shipments before the end of this month. By March, they could be changing the war. But this isn't just about the weapons themselves, it's about what they represent. For 3 years since Russia's invasion in February 2022, the United States has calibrated its military aid carefully, some would say too carefully. Always worried about escalation, always concerned about provoking Russia. Those concerns haven't disappeared entirely, but something has shifted in Washington in early 2026. The calculation has changed. And here's where Russia's nightmare gets even worse. Because at the exact moment when Moscow needs to counter this massive American weapons surge, the Russian economy is collapsing. We're not exaggerating. Russia is breaking from within right now, in February 2026. According to reports published just days ago, Russia's GDP growth in 2025 was just 1%. That might not sound catastrophic until you realize that Russia's GDP grew by 4.3% in 2024 and 4.1% in 2023. This isn't a slowdown. This is an economic cliff. The International Monetary Fund just revised its forecast for Russia's 2026 GDP growth down to 0.8%. A Kremlin-linked Russian think tank, the Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting, published a devastating report in January 2026. They're predicting a high probability that Russia enters a full recession by July 2026. Let that sink in. Russia's own analysts, people connected to the Kremlin, are saying recession is likely within months. But it gets worse for Putin. Russia's entire banking system is now classified as being in a systemic crisis. That's a technical term that means problem assets, loans and investments that banks will likely never recover, exceed 10% of total holdings. Current reports from February 2026 show that 19% of Russia's small and medium-sized businesses are classified as problem assets. Nearly 1 in 5 businesses that banks invested in are failing. Retail loans? 6.1% are problematic. That's 2.3 trillion rubles, or about $30 billion at risk. Corporate loans? 11.2% are in trouble. That's 10.4 trillion rubles, or $136 billion potentially going up in smoke. When 10% of your debtors are at high risk of default, you don't have an economy. You have a house of cards waiting to collapse. And here's the critical connection. When your economy is imploding, you can't fight a war effectively. You certainly can't match your opponent when they're receiving thousands of advanced missiles. Russia's defense industry is stretched to the breaking point right now, in February 2026. They've transformed their economy to focus almost entirely on weapons production, and it's destroying everything else. Russian manufacturing has declined for 7 consecutive months as of December 2025. The Purchasing Managers Index shows Russian manufacturing at 48.1 in December. Anything below 50 means contraction. Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak admitted just recently that investment in Russia's economy is trending towards 0%. Companies aren't investing in transportation, construction, oil, gas, or coal. The only sectors still seeing investment? Military production and import substitution. But nothing, absolutely nothing, demonstrates Russia's vulnerability right now more than what's happening with oil. On February 4, 2026, reports confirmed that Russia's oil and gas tax revenues plummeted by 50% in January 2026 compared to January 2025. 50% in 1 year. Russia made $5.1 billion from oil and gas taxes in January 2026. That sounds like a lot until you realize it's the lowest monthly revenue from oil and gas since July 2020, during the height of COVID-19. Even more devastating, that $5.1 billion represents just 2% of Russia's GDP. That's a record low for Putin's entire presidency. The numbers get worse. Russia's mineral extraction tax dropped nearly 60% compared to January 2025. Export duties decreased by 44%. Russian Urals oil crashed to $39 per barrel in December and $40 in January, far below the $59 that Russia budgeted for. Russia is selling its Urals crude at a $27 discount compared to Brent crude, and India, one of Russia's biggest customers, is preparing to buy 30% less Russian oil in 2026 due to sanctions concerns. This is a catastrophe for Russia because oil and gas revenues constituted 45% of Russia's federal budget before the war. Typically, this sector accounts for 30% to 50% of federal revenue. When oil revenues collapse, Putin's war machine starves. Current reports from February 2026 indicate Russia's budget deficit could triple by the end of this year. An unnamed Kremlin source suggested Russia may generate 18% less revenue from oil and gas than anticipated, leading to a deficit between 3.5% and 4.4% of GDP. So what does this mean for the war right now, in February 2026? Ukrainian forces are about to receive a capability they've desperately needed for 3 years. The ability to strike deep into Russian-held territory with precision and overwhelming force. Russian ammunition depots that have been feeding the war effort, vulnerable, command and control centers coordinating attacks on Ukrainian cities, at risk, supply lines bringing weapons and equipment from Russia, about to be severed. That changes everything. But Russia isn't going to just accept this. Current intelligence reports suggest Moscow is frantically trying to adapt. They're moving critical assets further from the front lines. They're reinforcing air defense systems. They're trying to accelerate their own missile production. None of it will be enough. Because here's what Putin didn't account for. The United States isn't done. The European Union finalized another sanctions package in early February 2026, reportedly set to be unleashed on the 4th anniversary of the invasion, February 24, 2026. The U.S. has also prepared a new sanctions package, though the timing remains unclear. The Trump administration appears to be holding these sanctions as leverage, ready to deploy them if Putin fails to negotiate in good faith. Putin claimed in recent weeks that he wants peace. He's tried to spin Russia's economic collapse as intentional, a necessary step to curb inflation. It's absurd. His own economists don't believe it. The evidence doesn't support it. Russian food inflation hit 25% in January 2026. Putin's only option to save Russia is to end the war on terms that don't give him everything he wants. He won't do that. His ego won't allow it. So the war continues. And as it does, Russia weakens while Ukraine grows stronger. The United States just changed the trajectory of this war. Thousands of advanced missiles heading to Ukraine represent more than military hardware. They represent commitment. They represent a recognition that Ukraine's victory serves American and European security interests. Putin thought he could outlast Western support. He thought economic pain in Europe and political changes in America would eventually force Ukraine to capitulate. He was wrong. Right now, in February 2026, we're watching the balance shift. Russia's economy is imploding. Its military is overstretched. Its international isolation is deepening. And now, Ukraine is about to receive weapons that will let them strike back harder than ever before. This is the single biggest move of the entire war, and Putin is powerless to stop it. The question isn't whether these missiles will change the war. They will. The question is how quickly and how dramatically we'll see the results.